Published in 2014, Everything I Never Told You by Celeste is a literary psychological mystery set in a small Ohio town in the 1970s. The novel opens with a stark revelation: Lydia is dead. But they don't know this yet. From this chilling opening, Ng takes the reader back and forth in time to unravel the emotional, cultural, and familial tensions that lead to Lydia's tragic death. The novel is not only a whodunit but also an exploration of the invisible forces that shape family dynamics, including cultural identity and racial marginalization, gender expectations, parental pressure and ambition, silence and emotional repression, grief and reconciliation. Ng's restrained and lyrical prose invites readers into the internal worlds of each family member, revealing how miscommunication, secrecy, and unspoken desires corrode relationships from within. The Lee family. The story centers around the Lee family, a biracial Chinese-American household living in Middlewood, Ohio. James Lee, a Chinese-American history professor at a local college. He yearns for assimilation and acceptance in white America. Marilyn Lee, a white woman who gave up her ambition to become a doctor in order to be a wife and mother. Lydia Lee, the favorite child, whose death at 16 serves as the novel's central mystery. Nath Lee, Lydia's older brother, a bright but withdrawn teen who plans to attend Harvard. Hannah Lee, the youngest sibling, often overlooked but highly perceptive. Lydia's disappearance and death. The novel begins with the discovery that Lydia has gone missing, followed soon after by the discovery of her body in a nearby lake. The family initially believes she may have been murdered, but over time, it becomes clear that her death was a suicide, a culmination of emotional isolation and unbearable pressure. The past unraveled. Ng uses a non-linear narrative to trace the roots of Lydia's unhappiness. We learn Marilyn, frustrated by her unrealized dreams of becoming a doctor, projects her ambitions onto Lydia, pressuring her to excel in science. James, scarred by a lifetime of racial exclusion, wants Lydia to fit in socially and be popular, a symbol of the family's assimilation. Lydia, caught between these conflicting expectations, becomes a vessel for her parents' hopes, losing sight of her own desires. In truth, Lydia struggles academically and is socially isolated, lying to her parents to maintain their approval. Sibling dynamics. Nath resents the attention lavished on Lydia and suspects her death was related to Jack Wolfe, a local boy he believes was involved with her romantically. However, Jack is later revealed to have had feelings for Nath, not Lydia. Hannah, the youngest child, silently observes the family's grief and dysfunction, often noticing what others overlook. Climax and revelation. As the story unfolds, the layers of miscommunication and repression come to light. James, in his grief, begins an affair. Marilyn confronts him and demands honesty. Nath finally explodes with rage. Each family member begins to recognize their complicity in Lydia's suffering. In the final chapters, we return to the night of Lydia's death. She goes to the lake alone, unable to bear the weight of her family's expectations. She hopes to overcome her fear of water, thinking this act might give her clarity. But she drowns, perhaps intentionally, perhaps accidentally, leaving her family shattered. Resolution. The novel ends not with full healing but with the beginning of emotional reckoning. The family starts to speak more openly, reflect on their mistakes, rediscover each other's presence. In the final scene, Nath and Hannah go to the lake together, a gesture of tentative connection and mutual care. Themes and analysis. 1. The weight of parental expectations. The central emotional conflict in Everything I Never Told You arises from the burden placed on Lydia to fulfill her parents' dreams. Marilyn, unable to become a doctor, channels her ambition into Lydia's academic future. James wants Lydia to be socially accepted and encourages her to make friends, attend parties, and be normal. Caught in this tug of war, Lydia becomes deeply alienated, unable to express her true self. Her parents don't see her, they see their own dreams reflected in her, leading to Lydia's silent collapse. This theme highlights how well-intentioned love can become oppressive when filtered through unmet needs and unacknowledged traumas. 2. Race and identity in 1970s America. James Lee, as a Chinese-American man in a white-dominated society, carries the scars of racial exclusion. As a child, he was bullied and ostracized. As an adult, he is frequently patronized and seen as an outsider. His marriage to Marilyn is frowned upon by her mother, reflecting interracial tension. James projects his desire for assimilation onto Lydia, urging her to be more American, popular, social, integrated. Yet Lydia also experiences racial microaggressions. Other kids mock her exotic appearance. Teachers make assumptions about her intelligence. Ng subtly explores how internalized racism and cultural erasure shape personal and familial identities, leading to shame, denial, and generational trauma. 3. Gender roles and feminine ambition. Marilyn's storyline reflects the traps of 1950s and 1960s domesticity. Despite excelling in science, she gives up her academic dreams after marriage. Her identity is subsumed under that of wife and mother. When she tries to return to school after Lydia's birth, her husband's disapproval and her own internal conflict prevent her from achieving her goals. She then turns to Lydia as a proxy, pushing her to succeed in a field she herself abandoned. But this creates pressure masked as love, control disguised as encouragement. Ng uses Marilyn's arc to critique societal constraints on women's ambitions and the cost of second-hand dreams. 4. Silence, secrecy, and miscommunication. The novel's title points to a central theme: the things left unsaid. Each character has secrets. Lydia hides her poor grades and loneliness. Nath hides his resentment of Lydia and his confusion about his emotions. James hides his affair and his insecurities. Marilyn hides her regret and rage. The Lee family avoids conflict, preferring silence to confrontation. This creates emotional gaps that widen into chasms, ultimately resulting in tragedy. Ng shows how the inability to communicate authentically can be more damaging than outright conflict. 5. The myth of the perfect family. To outsiders, the Lees appear respectable and successful. But beneath the surface lies cultural displacement, emotional repression, unspoken grief. Ng deconstructs the idea that success and appearance equate to happiness. The family's failure to acknowledge pain, difference, and emotional needs results in Lydia's death, a direct consequence of living behind a facade. The novel questions the American dream itself. At what cost does one strive for acceptance, and what does it mean to belong? 6. Grief and reconciliation. The second half of the novel charts the family's descent into grief, blame, and isolation. James turns to infidelity. Marilyn retreats into denial. Nath lashes out. Hannah quietly watches. But grief also becomes a catalyst for change. By the end, James and Marilyn begin to confront their past and their failings. Nath begins to open up. Hannah becomes a bridge of empathy. While Lydia's death is irreversible, Ng offers hope in the possibility of reckoning and renewal, a painful but necessary path to healing. Narrative structure and style. 1. Nonlinear storytelling. Ng employs a shifting timeline, moving between the present, post-Lydia's death, the recent past, events leading up to her disappearance, the distant past, James and Marilyn's courtship, early family life. This structure mirrors the process of grieving and remembering, where the past constantly interrupts the present. It also allows Ng to slowly reveal key emotional truths, layer characters with depth and contradictions, challenge the reader's assumptions. 2. Omniscient perspective. Ng uses a third-person omniscient narrator, granting access to the inner lives of all family members. This technique is crucial because it creates empathy across perspectives, including flawed or misguided characters. It reveals how each person's private pain contributes to collective tragedy. This panoramic view fosters a nuanced understanding of blame, love, and loss. 3. Quiet, lyrical prose. Ng's prose is spare, elegant, and emotionally restrained, echoing the novel's themes of silence and suppressed emotion. Her style avoids melodrama, emphasizes detail and gesture, highlights interiority. Even the most dramatic moments are rendered with understated precision, making the emotional impact more powerful. Conclusion. Celeste Ng's Everything I Never Told You is a profoundly moving novel that excavates the quiet tragedies of family life, particularly within the context of race, gender, and cultural identity. Through the story of the Lee family, Ng captures the ways in which expectation, misunderstanding, and silence can accumulate into unbearable pressure, and how love, when filtered through trauma and loss, can turn suffocating. The novel offers no easy answers or resolutions. Lydia's death cannot be undone. But Ng suggests that by confronting the truths we never speak, by facing what we've withheld from ourselves and from each other, we may begin to reclaim connection, understanding, and empathy. In just under 300 pages, Ng builds a narrative that is a family drama, a social critique, a psychological study, and ultimately, a testament to the power of voice and visibility. Everything I Never Told You reminds us that what we leave unsaid can shape our lives, and that healing begins with the courage to speak.